This is an original 1952 set of the Anthology of American Folk Music, edited by Harry Smith. Volume 2 was called Social Music. Right smack in the middle is Moonshiner's Dance. He credits Frank Cloutier and the Victoria Cafe Orchestra. On my first day at the Gale Family Library at the History Center, I started by looking up Victoria Cafe Orchestra in the phone book. And there it was, 825 University, Victoria Cafe. That was just mind-blowing that this strange recording on the anthology actually had an address in St. Paul. So I got in my car, drove down, took a look at it, and just couldn't believe my eyes. There I was, before the long-lost Victoria Cafe. But it seemed to me very likely that the place was going to be demolished. Maybe the easiest way to express how important this building is that it is responsible for the most prominent musical recording made in Minnesota prior to Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, or maybe the work of Prince at Paisley Park. Its music is known around the world by millions.
Sometimes a building is built for greatness. Its significance is clear from the moment the first brick is laid. Other times, the importance of a place emerges over decades, shaped by the stories, people, and moments it witnesses. On August 25th, 2024, this building reopened as 825 Arts, showing that the story of this place isn't just about its past, it's about the people who fought for its future, leading a grassroots effort over the last 15 years to save the building from demolition.
We want all of us to have a chance to cut the ribbon.
But the story starts much earlier. 100 years ago, 825 University was home to a very different kind of grand opening.
This building has lived a lot of different lives, right? It started out as a silent movie theater. It was one of 3 movie theaters built along this stretch when they were really building out University Avenue.
It only lasted as a movie theater for a few years. It was vacant for a little while until Mo Thompson, a comic singer and the owner of a music shop for records and sheet music, Mo Thompson led the effort to turn the Victoria Theater into the Victoria Cafe.
She don't care, he don't know. She used to be in a Broadway show. That's why she's a blushing bride.
And it opened Christmas Day, 1924.
Why, even the birds are happy.
Advertising in the American Jewish world and advertising, Chinese food on Christmas Day and mahjong in the afternoons.
To famed speakeasies of times, men bring their wives. It's against the law to drink, so drinking is suddenly smart. There's bootleg liquor on every American lip, shiny flask on every hip. By the middle 1920s, nightlife is having its heyday.
Over the next few years, the Victoria Cafe became a popular destination for dining and dancing. By 1927, local bandleader Frank Cloutier and his orchestra were a major attraction at the venue.
He was a real character. I've talked to some of his relatives. They say that he was a ladies' man. The orchestra was fairly small at the time, I think probably 5 or so musicians.
Their lively performances eventually led to the group being invited to a recording session with Jeanette Records.
That house band recorded this medley of songs that was called a Moonshiner's Dance Part 1. And there is a Part 2, but Part 1 is the one that saved the building.
And it's a series of songs that were popular in the Victorian era. played in a very jazzy style, which would have sounded pretty funny to people at the time. A typical evening at the Victoria around the time of the recording seems to me to have been a pretty typical night at a cabaret-style nightclub in the second half of Prohibition. You could bring a hip flask to spike your drink, but I also suspect that the Victoria could also hook you up if you were without.
Jeanette Records came to St. Paul in late 1927, setting up a temporary recording studio downtown at the Lowry Hotel. Frank Cloutier's group, credited on the recording as the Victoria Cafe Orchestra, was one of several acts recorded during these sessions.
One of the natural things to record when visiting St. Paul would be the house band at a speakeasy, because St. Paul was known as a wide open city where you could get a drink.
Back on University Avenue, federal agents charged with enforcing prohibition were casing the cafe, disguised as customers.
The Victoria was shut down for 6 months. It was padlocked, as they say, for 6 months. Shortly after it reopened, just before New Year's Eve, 1928, federal agents raided the Victoria Cafe, raided this space. The fun that you hear on the recording of Moonshiner's Dance, I feel rather nostalgic about it because things got very serious very quickly thereafter.
"25 years later, Folkways Records collaborated with avant-garde artist, ethnographic audio recordist, painter, collector of found objects, and filmmaker Harry Smith to compile the 3-volume anthology of American folk music.
Harry Smith was also an avid collector of 78 RPM records. He had all the best stuff and the best copies of all the best stuff. So Folkways Records knew that he was the right person to go to.
And Harry Smith was an artist of many strokes, but really was, at his heart, I think, a collage artist.
One of the records that Smith chose to include was Moonshiner's Dance Part 1, the only track on the album that didn't have roots in the American South.
Moonshiner's Dance is an outlier, that's for sure. It's a medley of songs. It's an anthology within the anthology. And his project was to turn on a new generation of listeners to America's folk music. And I suspect that he may have placed Moonshiner's Dance in the anthology at the center of the anthology, halfway between the beginning and end, as a kind of joke.
Harry Smith's anthology became a catalyst for the folk music revival in the late 50s and 60s, inspiring folklorists and musicians like Minnesotan Bob Dylan to dive deeper into a recorded legacy that was nearly lost.
The fact that this recording was on that album and had all of these significances, like that was like a major piece in the strategy to say like, oh, actually, this is a significant cultural landmark here because this band made this recording, which then like had a lot of influence like for decades after that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
By 2009, the Victoria Theater was being used as a storage facility by its owner and was in very poor shape. Attempts were made to demolish the building, but those who knew the history came together to bring the community back into the space.
The community gets wind that a local developer was going to tear down the building, turn it into a parking lot. Members of the community, as well as members of the kind of like historical preservation community, like stand up and go like, hold on a sec, this is a historic building. You know, it has some like fun, quirky like elements to it. It adds some like history to it. Like, let's save this thing. The Frogtown Neighborhood Association, they were the group that made it happen.
The Frogtown neighborhood is the most, I would say, and I think I could prove this, the most culturally and racially diverse community in the state.
Being someone who grew up in Frogtown, I always looked for a place that I could connect to. This building was always here, and I think that there's always arts moving around it.
In a lot of other neighborhoods, there would have been kind of rumors that this building was going to get torn down, and people would have been like, oh, that's bad, and then it would have kind of gotten torn down anyways. Frogtowners, they stand up, right, and they don't back off. The Land Bank Twin Cities, we had a connection with them.
They were the ones that had the funds to purchase from the landlord, and we started imagining what we could do if we actually had the building.
So 7 years they held on to this while we got community feedback about the design. You know, started like really the long road of trying to find all the different funding kind of necessary to make this project happen.
Over the 15-year effort to save the Victoria Theater, the venue was beginning to show its potential again as a community gathering space, hosting events to help raise awareness of all the building had to offer to the city and the neighborhood.
This is from 1916.
We did a lot of community outreach. We started to bring people in here.
We continue to have like listening sessions and having events here in this space. It was our way of being able to get the voice of each and every community member who felt invested into our community. I learned about Hmong dance and their dress and their garb, and they're teaching me about their history through their dance.
Right in the middle of light rail construction, so like a group of Southeast Asian dancers out front and projections on the windows. A good spark for kind of the magic that could happen here in the future.
When we have these gathering spaces and you're getting to meet your neighbors and feeding each other spiritually, and spaces like this really help to influence that.
Finally, in 2021, we were able to actually buy the building from the land bank and thus start, you know, the real process towards construction.
While the building was being renovated from the inside out, the history of the space remained an important feature to highlight.
As much as we could of the actual interior we saved, and the exterior.
We wanted to save anything in the building that had a story to tell. You look up and you see these murals encircling the whole building. And the other like major piece are these columns that go all along around the building from when it was a silent movie theater. And so they have like these really kind of like ornate kind of like wood tops that fortunately there were a couple of them still intact, so we were able to like get them like rebuilt and recreated. Those kind of tiebacks to history, I think, are really cool, like highlights all over the building.
And the song, we played it all the time, and it became a catch-all for why this is important to preserve.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Which brings us to the present. The Victoria Theater has been resurrected as 825 Arts and is living its most varied and diverse life yet, housing musical and theater performances, art events, and community gatherings of all kinds.
Give it up for all the people that made this. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. We got flavors from 7 continents from mom and pop shops here. Diverse rhythms of music and movement captivate rec centers here. Unified on this universe on University Avenue.
And the fact that they did it on Sunday, August 25th, to reflect the address. Everything is so thoughtful and amazing.
It was joyous, it was exciting, it had a very energetic vibe. But also it was people that, again, have worked together for many years to see this happen. It was like a big family reunion.
I've been involved with the project 12 years, and I saw people that were involved before me come and walk in the doors of this place. Seeing people like Denise Mwasiba and like Keith Johnson, who were there from the very beginning to make this place happen. There is history already in this building, in that 15-year effort to make it happen.
There's theater seats, there's staff manning the joint again, and it's healing. I just never thought it would happen.
It took a lot, and and it happened. Community won. That doesn't always happen.
This is an example of anti-displacement and how projects being given to the hands of community, sometimes scary for a local government, sometimes scary for developers and people to put resources into our neighborhood. But then this is what you get.
In the beginning, for a very long time, I felt very alone in believing that this place mattered, and that it mattered in very many profound ways. But watching this community come together to make something extraordinary and essential and really new happen here is beyond my wildest ambitions. And of course, it's reminded me to never doubt the power of fresh, original, dedicated historic research, and certainly never forget what a community can do when it works together to achieve its ambitions.
825 Arts is now a revived creative hub for the Frogtown and Rondo communities. But none of this could have happened without the work and dedication of community members, local organizations, historians, researchers, and of course, a song.